I want to show you the real costs of buying a condo here in Toronto, not just the purchase price on the agreement, but everything that comes with it, like the land transfer tax, title insurance, government fees, and of course, legal fees. My name is Zachary Soccio-Marandola. I'm a real estate lawyer here in Toronto, and I help people like you close real estate deals every single day. So to give you a full understanding of exactly what you pay when you buy a condo, or any property for that matter, I've set up real documents to walk you through all of the financials of closing as if I was going through it with one of my own clients. Let's get into it. Okay, so here we have our agreement of purchase and sale that we're going to be using for today's example. So I've set our fictional buyers here, George Costanza and Susan Ross, and our seller as Cosmo Kramer. I've also put in a fake property address, legal description, but everything else, all the financials are going to work exactly how it would be if this was a real deal. So we're going to use a purchase price of $700,000. And I use that amount because in 2025, that was just about the average condo purchase price in Toronto. And in this case, we have a deposit. We're going to set that as $35,000. Now, typically a deposit will be paid upon acceptance. So right after this agreement is executed, within 24 hours, the buyer is going to submit $35,000 to the listing brokerage, and they're going to hold that in their trust account. And that's going to stay there until we actually move towards closing. Now, the first thing that we will do once we get closer to that closing date, which in this case we've set for February 27th, 2026, is we're going to adjust for closing. So the authority to adjust for closing, if you look at any standard agreement of purchase and sale, there will be a clause just like this here, and in this case it's clause 21. And that is adjustments. So this stipulates that there are certain things that will be adjusted for the day of closing. In most deals, we're going to be looking at these two things here for condos. So we're going to adjust for the common expenses and the realty taxes. And that's just because typically these other ones won't apply. Where you see the words mortgage interest here, that's only if you're assuming a mortgage. So just, if you have a new standard mortgage coming in as the buyer, there's no mortgage interest adjustment being done with the seller. So I've prepared a mock statement of adjustments the same way we would for any client, and they would see this in their closing package. To actually read this document, we start here with the sale price of $700,000. We know that the purchaser has paid a deposit of $35,000, and then our next step is to adjust for property taxes. So we know that in 2025, the property taxes were $3,000, and we'll usually confirm this based on a tax certificate. So whenever we're closing early in the year, we need to make an estimate for the 2026 numbers because they have yet to be confirmed. Now, at this point, we know that the City of Toronto is planning to increase property taxes by 2.2% this year, so we'll use that as our estimated increase, which gives us an estimated total for 2026 of $3,066. Now, on a prorated basis, the vendor share would be for 57 days, and that would come out to $478.80. We're going to assume that the vendor is yet to make a payment on property taxes, which means the purchaser, once they acquire the property, will be making the total payments for 2026 in terms of property taxes. So to compensate them for the fact that they'd be paying for a portion of the time when the seller actually owned the property, we credit the purchaser this amount. The next thing we do is adjust for common expenses. And in this case, it will work in the opposite way. Common expenses are typically paid on the first of the month. So we're assuming that they've made that payment. And for our example, we'll use a number of $500 for the common fees or common expenses. And the vendor share for 26 days will be $464.29. So we credit them back for the difference or the remainder of days that the buyer is going to be the owner of the property. So that'll be $35.71. So if we look on the right side here, we know that the seller or the vendor has to receive $700,000 plus $35.71 for a total of $700,035.71. Now we go back to the purchaser side. We know that the buyer has already paid a deposit of $35,000. We know that they get a credit for $478.80, which leaves our balance due on closing in order to equal this number here would be $664,556.91. So the easiest way I explain this document to clients is this is how we figure out exactly how much money we're sending to the seller on the day of closing. So it'll be this amount right here. Now that'll lead us to our next document, which we call a trust ledger. And this shows exactly what happens through all the money that goes through our trust account here at our law firm. So here's a trust ledger statement, the same way it would be included in a client's closing package. And the best way to read this document is to start with this number here. So as you can see, this is the same number as in the statement of adjustments. So this is what we calculated that we're going to be paying to the seller's lawyer on closing. The next number we have here is provincial land transfer tax. So for a condo purchase in Toronto of $700,000, the provincial land transfer tax will be $10,475. It will be the same amount for the municipality. So remember, in the city of Toronto, there is 2 land transfer tax charges. The city has their own tax and the province has their own tax. So all purchases on Ontario are subject to the provincial land transfer tax. Properties purchased in the city of Toronto are also subject to the municipal land transfer tax. And the calculation is the same. There are some instances when these numbers will be different, and that would be if the purchaser is a first-time homebuyer. And that's because the rebate is slightly different for the province as it is for the municipality. So the rebate for the province is $4,000. So if they were a first-time homebuyer, this number here would read $6,475. And for the municipal land transfer tax, it would read $6,000 flat. And again, that's because the municipal land transfer tax rebate for first-time homebuyers is actually higher, so you pay less. Now, the municipal land transfer tax admin fee is a fee that the City of Toronto charges to collect and administer that land transfer tax. So for 2026, that amount is $115.89. The next number we have here is a government registration fee. So every time we register a document on title of a property, we have to pay $85 to register that. So in this case, we know that we're going to have a mortgage. So we have to register both the transfer, which is what provides legal title to the buyer, and we have to register the mortgage on title. So that's 2 registrations at $85, comes out to $170. The next number here is our title insurance premium, which for a condo at $700,000 would be $448.20. Our last number is our legal fees. So we use an all-inclusive legal fee. That means our fee that we provide for quotes includes all of our internal disbursements. So things like title searches, conveyancing, software fees, banking fees, anything that we incur as we go through the closing process. We've just gone ahead and estimated those over the many closings we have done. And have just averaged those out to make it easier for clients to understand the billing. So in this case, it's $21.99 for this type of transaction, plus HST, which brings us to $24.84.87. So if we add up all these numbers, we know that the total cost to close would be $688,725.87. Now remember, this is not including the deposit. Deposit is included here, but we know that we're not sending the deposit to the seller on closing. That's already been paid. So we're just using the number that we're sending to the seller, as well as the rest of the fees that have to be paid in order to close the deal. Now, once we have that number, we then back out what we know we're going to be receiving from the lender, which in this case, we would get mortgage instructions that would state how much the lender is sending to our trust account on the day of closing on behalf of the buyer, our client. And in this case, we're just going to use a round number at 80% loan to value. So we're going to assume a mortgage of $560,000. So once we subtract $560 from here, we know that the buyer, in this case, George and Susan, have to bring in $128,725.87 in order for us to close the deal. So I've prepared a summary statement just to kind of wrap up what we just went through. So we know that, if the purchase price is $700,000 for an actual agreement of purchase and sale, along with that, there's $24,168.96 in transaction costs. So these are things unrelated to the purchase price, the deposit, and the statement of adjustments. That means the client or the purchaser, assuming they got a mortgage of 80%, would have to actually pay out of pocket $163,725.87 in order to close on this property. Now, one of the things we've created for our clients is a legal fee calculator. And this can be found right on our website, as well as linked below in the description. And what this does here is this will actually give you an instant estimate of our legal fees in order to close your transaction, as well as it will detail all of those closing costs that we just went over, so you can budget right from the start. So we're going to put in all the information that matches the agreement of purchase and sale that we went through. So in this case, we've got a condo purchase at $700,000. We will have a bank mortgage. The property is in Toronto, and no, we're not first-time home buyers. And what you do, you put in an email address, and you get an instant quote sent right to your inbox. So here's what that email will look like when it comes in. You'll see we have our all-inclusive legal fee of $21.99 plus HST. And again, we include all of these disbursements in this fee here. Some law firms will charge a legal fee plus disbursements, where they will actually take the actual amounts that they've spent on each closing and add those back. We found through our interactions with clients, as they find this more cumbersome and harder to budget with because they don't know the exact number up until essentially the day of closing. So a lot of them prefer to have this all-inclusive model where they can budget right from the start. Now, what we also include here is the taxes and insurance. as well as that government registration. So now you can see the exact numbers that we just went through on the actual closing documents. We can get the estimate usually within a few dollars, and the only things that will typically change is the title insurance, because that's done on an estimate. Land transfer tax is a set formula, so we normally know the exact number right off the bat. This land transfer tax admin fee, that's set for the entire year, as well as the government registration fees. So because we put in that we have a bank mortgage, we know that there's going to be 2 registrations, so that's why it shows $170. Now, if we put in no mortgage and we're paying cash for this purchase, this number here would say $85. Now, the title insurance, we've done our very best to get it as close as possible to the actual title insurers calculators online that are available. So this number is usually very accurate as well. As a purchaser, you would have your legal fee, as well as all of these fees here. And the only thing you wouldn't have before the agreement is done is those adjustments. Now, again, those adjustments are not extra costs. Those are simply the prorated differences between the common expenses and the realty taxes that you're going to be paying. So I hope you found that helpful, going through the actual numbers and seeing the real closing documents that we would use going through an actual purchase of a condo. So this shows you exactly what it would cost using that example, but of course, all of those numbers can be manipulated to your purchase or whatever situation you're going through. Now, and of course, if you want to use our legal fee calculator to get that full estimate ahead of time, we've linked that down in the description below. And if you've been enjoying the content that we're putting out, these behind the scenes real estate law videos, feel free to go ahead and subscribe to our channel here. We're going to be putting out a video every single week. So thanks for watching, and until next time.